Ice Cube does nothing for me as a rapper and an actor.
The feeling is mutual. You know, I don't think he on anybody's list of top 10 comedians.
Some names you debate, some names you don't, unless you're ready for the entire culture to answer back. When Aries Spears sat down and said he can't stand Ice Cube, mocking the music, the movies, even the legacy, he didn't just toss an opinion into the air. He lit a fuse under a pillar. Clips started flying, comments piled up, and before long, Cube himself dropped a calm line that felt like a punch. Suckers usually don't like me. So why did this blow up so fast? What made the room go cold when Aries doubled down? And what does this say about how the internet keeps score when you aim at a legend? But that wasn't the whole story. It was supposed to be harmless shop talk. Rankings, favorites, the usual back and forth. Then the temperature spiked. Aries said he can't stand Ice Cube. Not as a rapper, not as an actor. He took a swipe at "It Was a Good Day," a record people treat like West Coast scripture. The joke landed with a thud. Even the room that loves a hot take went quiet. You could feel the air thin out as he pushed farther, riffing with a weird impression that didn't read as clever or bold, just off. Online, the clip started sprinting. The pushback wasn't polite. Fans weren't just defending a song, they were defending a foundation. If you're going to run at a classic, you'd better show your work. And what happened next would surprise even longtime fans. Legends don't flail, they slice. When Cube finally addressed it, he didn't raise his voice or write a thesis. He questioned whether Aries is even on anyone's top 10 list in black comedy, then dropped a kind of line that ends arguments. Suckers usually don't like me. That's the sound of a man with decades of receipts brushing dust off his shoulder. No tantrum, no monologue, just a reminder that when you've built across 3 different arenas, music, film, business, you don't need to brawl to win the room. The audience recognized it instantly. A quick sentence and the momentum flipped. But why did that one sentence feel like a knockout? Taste is subjective. Legacy isn't. Ice Cube isn't just the face on a poster. He's the pen that helped define a generation. He wrote with a clarity that cut through static, then left a supergroup on principle and delivered one of rap's most blistering takedowns. No Vaseline still makes lists because it still makes stomachs drop. He turned around and shifted black comedy on screen with Friday, building a universe that felt like a neighborhood people actually knew. Years later, he launched Big 3, a 3-on-3 league everyone said would never matter, and turned it into franchises, TV slots, and a real summer season. You can argue whether a hook is your vibe. You can't pretend that resume didn't happen. That's why fans didn't hear Aries slandering a song. They heard him waving off a body of work that changed things. Still, the story didn't stop there. Instead of letting the moment cool, Aries leaned in. "It's just my opinion." He said Cube's music and acting do nothing for him. Then another clip started making rounds. Aries calling Tupac less a great lyricist and more a force of energy. Even if you think that's a defensible argument, stacking it on top of a Cube takedown looked like a pattern, like poking sacred cows. For the algorithm, the room stops hearing nuance once it decides you're chasing attention. Fair or not, that's how feeds work. Timing beats context, and tone beats intent. One hot take can be honest. 2 in a row, aimed at incomparable icons, and it starts to read like a brand. But the hit that hurt most didn't come from a punchline. It came from history. Audiences don't judge in a vacuum. In 2022, Aries and Tiffany Haddish were hit with a civil lawsuit over an old sketch. Both denied wrongdoing, and the accuser later dropped the case. It was dismissed with prejudice. Legally, that shut the door. Culturally, a stain lingers because the headline is louder than the follow-up. So when Aries swings at a pillar now, critics don't only argue taste. They drag in every reason they've filed him under nah. That's how the internet fights. Not with what you meant, but with what they remember. It's harsh. It's also predictable. If you haven't stacked new wins, the past becomes the loudest cosign in the room, and then the story picked up a shadow chorus. This is where speculation needs a seatbelt. Clips and captions suggested 50 Cent shaded Aries with a sly post. Nothing named, everything implied. Might be a coincidence, might be a wink. Either way, the sentiment matched the temperature. When you take aim at a builder, you're not just arguing with fans. You're tugging the sleeve of other builders. People who saw Cube create lanes for himself before Hollywood did. People who watched him produce his own vehicles, write his own scripts, and hire his own people. Whether the 50 chatter was legit or just fan fiction, the internet reaction was real. The community that values receipts tends to circle the wagons hangs around the folks who brought receipts for 30 years straight. So where's the line between real critique and clout fishing? It's not hard. Start with receipts. If Cube's acting doesn't move you, cite roles, choices, range. If certain albums aged unevenly, talk production, writing, context. People don't hate honest critique. They hate lazy dismissals. Saying, "Nothing he ever did impressed me" about a man who wrote, performed, produced, and built a league reads as unserious. Add in that you're not headlining arenas right now, and the crowd starts to smell resentment. You don't have to kiss rings, but you do have to respect the foundation if you expect a house to listen. Otherwise, you're not debating. You're daring the timeline to carry you out. And that brings us to the most uncomfortable part. Controversy pays for a minute. It sells clips, drives comments, buys a weekend of relevance, then the bill arrives. If your catalog isn't growing, the only way to stay visible is to escalate the shock. Bigger claims, sharper elbows, louder targets, that's not a career. That's a treadmill with a trap door. Meanwhile, the people you're throwing rocks at keep stacking bricks. Cube can shrug a week of noise and roll right back into meetings about franchises, film rights, and summer schedules. The market rewards consistency more than flame-throwing. That's why the blowback to Aries felt so lopsided. One side has momentum, the other has microphones. But there's a deeper reason this rubbed people wrong. In our culture, some names aren't just famous. They're load-bearing. They carry the weight of a time, a sound, a way of doing business that taught younger artists what was possible. You can argue their misses, you can chart their evolution, but if you erase the scaffolding, you look out of touch with the very house you want to live in. Cube doesn't need everyone to love every verse. He needs fairness. He earned that. When critique drops the fairness, the crowd stops debating art and starts defending a principle. We don't rewrite history just to feed a headline. So was Aries pushed out for speaking his mind? Or did he misread the room? Say anything, that's your right. But the culture also gets to reply, and the reply scales with the resume of the person you tested. If you fling a take at a mid-tier figure, maybe you win a news cycle. Aim at a cornerstone and treat decades like dust, and you become the story, just not the one you wanted. That doesn't mean you can't question icons. It means you have to do it like you know what they built. The internet doesn't mind a challenge. It minds a cheap shot. And if you're keeping score at home, here's the real lesson. Ice Cube has them. Records that matter, films that stuck, a league that exists because he wouldn't wait for permission. He isn't perfect. Nobody is. But when he said, "Suckers usually don't like me," it wasn't chest thumping. It was context. Every era has performers who confuse noise with influence. Then there are architects. Architects don't have to scream. The buildings speak for them. So what do we do with a moment like this? If you're going to critique, show your homework. If you're going to chase relevance, make new work worth chasing. If you're going to poke a giant, bring more than a smirk. And if you love the culture, protect the foundations without turning them into museums. Legends don't need worship. They need honest conversations that still honor what they made possible. Aries Spears can hold any opinion he wants. That's not the headline. The headline is what happens when opinion meets legacy without respect in the middle. Ice Cube didn't need a rant to win this round. He needed one sentence and a lifetime of proof. You don't have to love every bar, every role, every business move. But if you wave off a whole career like it's a meme, don't be shocked when the room waves you off right back. Talk your talk, bring receipts, and ask yourself a better question. If you were in the chair across from the culture, could you say you built something that time can't erase? Drop your take below. Was this honest critique or clout play? What's the one Cube line, scene, or move that made you a believer? Let's talk.